Her name echoes through history like a whisper from a forgotten time, a queen so powerful that kings sought her wisdom, so mysterious that legends blur the lines between fact and fiction. But who was she, really? Was she an African empress or an Arabian monarch, a myth, or a ruler whose influence shaped civilizations? The Queen of Sheba, a name that has fascinated scholars, religious leaders, and historians for thousands of years. Mentioned in the Bible, the Quran, and Ethiopian legends, her story is a puzzle scattered across continents. Today we dive deep into history, separating fact from fiction to uncover the true origins of one of the greatest rulers the world has ever known. Where was Sheba, the empire that ruled the trade routes? Long before Rome rose to power and before Greece built its mighty cities, a kingdom flourished between Africa and Arabia. The empire of Sheba, known to historians as Saba, was a dominant force in the ancient world. It was strategically positioned between Ethiopia, Eritrea, Djibouti, and Yemen, controlling trade routes that supplied gold, incense, and spices to Egypt, Mesopotamia, and even India. The Sabaeans were master traders, navigating vast desert landscapes and treacherous sea routes. Their wealth was unimaginable, built on the booming trade of frankincense and myrrh, two resins so valuable that they were worth more than gold in the ancient world. The power of Sheba rested on its ability to control the flow of these resources, making its rulers some of the richest and most influential figures of their time. But who ruled over this mighty kingdom, who commanded its armies, negotiated its trade deals, and ensured its survival amidst rival empires? This is where history and legend begin to intertwine. Was the Queen of Sheba real? The mystery of her origins. One of the greatest historical debates is whether the Queen of Sheba was a real historical figure or a mythological construct. Her story appears in three major sources: the Bible, 1 Kings 10, 2 Chronicles 9, the Quran, Surah 27, the Ant, Ethiopian legends, the Kibra Nagast. Each account tells a different version of her identity, fueling endless speculation. In the biblical account, she is portrayed as a wealthy and wise queen who journeys to Jerusalem to test King Solomon's wisdom with difficult questions. She arrives with an enormous caravan bearing gifts of gold, spices, and precious stones. The encounter between the two rulers is one of diplomacy, admiration, and possibly romance. The Islamic tradition, however, expands her story. In the Quran, she is known as Bilqis, a powerful queen whose people worship the sun. Upon hearing of her kingdom, King Solomon sends a letter inviting her to abandon idol worship and submit to the worship of one God. Their meeting is marked by miraculous events, including Solomon using his powers to transport her throne to his palace before she arrives. But it is in Ethiopian tradition that her story takes on an even greater significance. The Kibra Nagast, an ancient Ethiopian text, claims that the Queen of Sheba was actually from Ethiopia, and that her visit to Solomon led to the birth of a son, Menelik I, the founder of the Ethiopian Solomonic dynasty. This dynasty, which ruled Ethiopia for centuries, claimed direct descent from King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba. With so many different versions, the truth remains elusive. Was she a real queen, or a literary figure created to symbolize wisdom and power? 3. The debate: was she Ethiopian or Arabian? The biggest controversy surrounding the Queen of Sheba is her origin. Was she an Ethiopian queen, an Arabian ruler, or a blend of both? On one side, scholars argue that Sheba refers to the ancient kingdom of Saba, which was located in modern-day Yemen. The Sabaean people were well documented in ancient inscriptions, and their civilization flourished in the Arabian Peninsula for centuries. Supporters of this theory believe that the Queen of Sheba was a powerful Arabian monarch who ruled over this region. On the other side, Ethiopian tradition firmly places her in Aksum, an early African kingdom that rose to prominence centuries later. The Aksumites believed that she was their ancestor and that her legacy lived on through Ethiopian rulers. This belief was so strong that Ethiopian emperors, including Haile Selassie, traced their lineage back to her and Solomon. So which is true? Was she Arabian or Ethiopian? Or was Sheba a vast empire that spanned both regions, making her a queen of both Africa and Arabia? Theories on her ancestry and lineage. Another layer of mystery surrounds the Queen of Sheba's ancestry. If she truly existed, what was her lineage? Some theories suggest 1. She was of African descent, belonging to the Cushitic people of Ethiopia. 2. She was a Sabaean queen of Semitic origin, ruling in Yemen. 3. She was a hybrid ruler, overseeing an empire that included both African and Arabian territories. Some even speculate that she may have had Egyptian ties, considering the extensive trade between Sheba and the Nile civilizations. Could she have been related to the Nubian queens of Kush, powerful African rulers who challenged Egypt's dominance? Without concrete evidence, the debate continues. But what is certain is that her story is one of power, wealth, and influence, and her legacy has endured for over 2 millennia. 5. The Queen's birthplace, a lost city? If the Queen of Sheba was real, where was she born? Historians have searched for the lost capital of Sheba for centuries. Some believe it was in Marib, Yemen, where ancient ruins of the Sabaean civilization still stand. Others point to Aksum, Ethiopia, where Ethiopian tradition claims her palace once existed. There is even speculation that she ruled from Taiz, a city in Yemen, or from ancient Djibouti, another hub of Red Sea trade. The lack of clear archaeological evidence makes it difficult to pinpoint her exact origins, but the search for her lost city continues. Whether she was born in the deserts of Arabia or the highlands of Ethiopia, one thing is clear: she was destined for greatness. Her name would be remembered for millennia, inspiring generations with tales of wisdom, power, and mystery. But how did she rise to power, and what made her kingdom so wealthy and influential? A throne without an heir, the political chaos that led to her rise. To understand how the Queen of Sheba came to power, we must first look at the political landscape of her time. The Kingdom of Sheba, whether in Arabia, Ethiopia, or both, was a major power controlling the lucrative spice and incense trade routes, but its throne was not always stable. Some scholars believe she inherited the kingdom as the sole heir of a ruling dynasty. But in a time when female rulers were rare, her ascent would not have been simple. If she had brothers or male relatives, she likely had to prove herself superior to them. If there was no heir, then her claim to the throne may have been contested by noblemen, generals, or rival families who saw a woman as unfit to rule. How did she secure her power? Some theories suggest a royal bloodline. She may have been the only surviving heir of the ruling dynasty, making her the undisputed queen. A strategic marriage. Some legends suggest she was married briefly, using this alliance to solidify her claim before ruling independently. Political genius, she could have outmaneuvered rivals through diplomacy, gaining the support of influential noblemen and traders. Military power, some suggest she commanded an army or gained military backing to ensure her rule was unchallenged. Regardless of how she came to power, one thing is certain: she was no mere figurehead. She ruled with absolute authority, securing Sheba's dominance in trade, politics, and religion. The wealth of Sheba, the power that made her untouchable. What made her rule unshakable was the unmatched wealth of Sheba. The kingdom controlled the frankincense and myrrh trade, supplying Egypt, Mesopotamia, Greece, and even India. These were not just pleasant-smelling resins, they were used in religious ceremonies, medicine, and embalming. In some regions, they were worth more than gold. Sheba's wealth came from monopolizing the incense trade, controlling access to the Arabian and African sources of frankincense and myrrh, dominating the Red Sea trade routes, acting as the middleman between Africa, the Middle East, and Asia. Agriculture and irrigation. The kingdom had advanced terrace farming and irrigation systems that sustained large populations. Taxation and tribute. Merchants passing through Sheba had to pay heavy taxes, enriching the royal treasury. But having wealth meant having enemies. Powerful empires, from Egypt to Assyria, eyed Sheba's riches. Rivals within the kingdom may have sought to overthrow her. So how did she maintain her rule? She needed more than wealth. She needed intelligence, strategy, and alliances. The queen's diplomacy, how she outwitted her enemies. Ruling a prosperous kingdom meant constantly negotiating with powerful men. But the Queen of Sheba was no ordinary ruler. She was a master of diplomacy. She secured alliances through trade. Instead of fighting powerful empires, she ensured Sheba remained an essential trade partner. Making war against her unprofitable, she used religion as a unifying tool. If she ruled in Yemen, she might have been a high priestess of the moon god, linking her rule to divine authority. If she ruled in Ethiopia, she likely used local religious traditions to maintain loyalty. She neutralized threats before they became wars. Unlike other rulers who waged war to prove strength, she used intelligence, negotiation, and economic power to disarm her rivals before they became enemies. Her diplomatic genius would later be seen in her encounter with King Solomon, a meeting that shaped history and legend. The queen as a military leader, myth or reality? Was she merely a politician, or did she command armies? Some ancient sources suggest that Sheba had a strong military force, capable of defending its wealth from invaders. Ethiopian legends claim that the Queen of Sheba led her own army. While there is no direct evidence, female warriors and rulers were not unheard of in ancient Africa. The Nubian queens, known as Candaces, led armies into battle. Then could Sheba have had a similar tradition? It's possible that she had an elite guard of loyal soldiers, ensuring her protection. She formed alliances with neighboring tribes and mercenaries to secure her borders. Sheba's wealth allowed her to pay off potential invaders, avoiding unnecessary wars. Even if she never fought on the battlefield, Her rule suggests she was not someone to challenge lightly. 5. Her influence beyond Sheba. Was she a global power? The Queen of Sheba's influence may have extended beyond her own kingdom. Some historians believe she played a role in international politics, shaping events far beyond her borders. Egyptian connections. Some speculate she had ties to pharaohs, possibly trading with or even influencing Egyptian policies. African influence. If she ruled from Ethiopia, her impact might have extended into Sudan, Nubia, and even West Africa. Arabian expansion. Sheba's trade routes reached into Arabia, possibly influencing the kingdoms that later became part of the Islamic world. This global influence made her a legend, ensuring her story would be passed down for centuries. The mystery of her rule. How long did she reign? One of the biggest mysteries surrounding the Queen of Sheba is how long she ruled. There is no clear historical record of her reign, but some legends claim she'd ruled for several decades, overseeing one of the most prosperous eras of Sheba's history. She disappeared mysteriously, with some stories saying she left her throne after meeting Solomon. Her rule was so transformative that her people continued to honor her long after she was gone. Regardless of how long she ruled, her impact was undeniable. Her next great challenge would come not from within her kingdom, but from a meeting that would change history. She had built an empire of wealth, power, and influence, but one journey would make her immortal. When she heard of a man whose wisdom was said to be greater than any king, she knew she had to meet him. But what really happened when the Queen of Sheba met King Solomon? Was it a diplomatic mission, a romantic affair, or something far greater? The Queen of Sheba's decision to visit King Solomon was not made lightly. It was a calculated move, filled with strategic intent. But first we must ask, did this meeting really happen? The Bible, 1 Kings 10 verse 0, 1 verse 13, 3 Chronicles 9:01 verses 12 to 12, describes how the Queen of Sheba, intrigued by Solomon's wisdom, traveled with a massive caravan loaded with gold, spices, and precious stones. The Quran, Surah An-Naml 27:20, 24-44, gives a slightly different version, referring to her as Bilqis, a pagan queen who later accepted monotheism after meeting Solomon, with special possessions including the Kibra, Mahijan, Goliath, Ethiopia, claim that she bore Solomon's son and started a royal dynasty in Ethiopia. But why did she really go? The theories behind her journey. 1. Testing Solomon's wisdom. She may have wanted to see if he was as wise as rumors claimed. Wisdom was a sign of divine favor, and if Solomon was truly gifted, she would gain knowledge from him. 2. A diplomatic power move. As a ruler of a rich and powerful kingdom, she may have sought an alliance with Israel to secure trade routes. 3. A religious mission. If she was a priestess or had religious authority, she may have wanted to understand Solomon's God and his kingdom's spiritual power. 4. A test of wealth and influence. By bringing extravagant gifts, she might have been measuring Solomon's wealth against her own. Regardless of her reasons, her arrival in Jerusalem would be a spectacle unlike any other. When the Queen of Sheba entered Solomon's court, she did not come as a subordinate. She came as an equal, a powerful ruler in her own right. Ancient texts describe this meeting as a test of wisdom, where she posed riddles and challenges to Solomon. a man of the possible riddles she asked, based on Jewish midrashic traditions, include: water never comes from the earth or sky. Answer: what comes first, the chicken or the egg? An early version of the classic question. What is the strongest thing in the world? Solomon's answer: time, because it conquers all. But was this meeting just about riddles? Likely not. What she wanted. She may have sought confirmation that Solomon's wisdom was divinely given, as this would affect political and religious alliances. She might have wanted to study his kingdom's military strength, learning how he maintained control over Israel and its neighbors. Some theories suggest she was interested in Hebrew law and governance, possibly looking for models of leadership. What Solomon wanted. He likely saw Sheba as a key trading partner, and her visit provided an opportunity to negotiate control over valuable trade routes. If she ruled in Ethiopia or Yemen, he would have wanted access to Sheba's resources, gold, incense, and exotic goods. If the Ethiopian legends are true, Solomon may have been interested in forming a dynastic connection, ensuring his influence lasted beyond Israel. The Lear meeting wasn't just about intelligence, it was about strategy, survival, and legacy. One of the most debated aspects of their meeting is whether romance played a role. The Bible never explicitly states that they had a romantic relationship. The Kebra Nagast, Ethiopia's national epic, tells a different story. Solomon seduced the Queen of Sheba, and she bore his son, Menelik V, the founder of Ethiopia's Solomonic dynasty. Islamic traditions suggest that Solomon was captivated by her beauty and wisdom, but whether they married or had a child remains uncertain. Was it a love story or political strategy? If a child was truly born, this would have strengthened ties between Israel and Sheba, ensuring a lasting alliance. If they were merely intellectual and diplomatic partners, their meeting still changed the course of history through trade and knowledge exchange. Some historians believe the romance story was a later political invention to legitimize the Ethiopian monarchy by claiming descent from Solomon. Regardless of whether romance was involved, their encounter was one of the most significant diplomatic meetings of the ancient world. The exchange of gifts between Solomon and Sheba was not just ceremonial, it was a power statement. What she gave Solomon: gold, reportedly over 4.5 tons, spices, highly prized, including frankincense and myrrh, precious stones, possibly Ethiopian opals or Arabian rubies. What Solomon gave her: everything she desired and asked for. 1 Kings 10:13. This is vague, but could have included valuable scrolls, trade agreements, and political alliances. Possibly access to Jewish wisdom and religious knowledge. If Ethiopian legends are true, Solomon gave her the Ark of the Covenant, or a replica of it, which was taken to Ethiopia. This exchange was more than wealth. It was a declaration of respect and equality. After their historic meeting, the Queen of Sheba returned to her kingdom. Some sources say she left with a deeper understanding of Solomon's wisdom and God's laws. Others claim she returned carrying Solomon's child, who would later rule Ethiopia. There is also a theory that she brought back religious reforms, shaping the future of Sheba's spiritual traditions. Her return was not just the end of a journey, it was the beginning of a lasting legend. The encounter has had long-lasting effects on history, culture, and religion. In Judaism, her visit proves Solomon's global influence and divine wisdom. In Christianity, she is seen as a seeker of truth, acknowledging the power of Israel's God. In Islam, she is a queen who accepted monotheism, symbolizing submission to God's will. In Ethiopia, she is the mother of a dynasty that ruled for centuries, linking Africa to Israel through blood and faith. But was their meeting purely political, or was it something more? The Queen of Sheba had tested the greatest king of her time, and she returned home with more than she had expected. But what happened to her kingdom after she left Solomon? How did her story evolve into legend? And what traces of her rule remain today? 1. The missing years. What happened after she left Solomon? After her fabled meeting with King Solomon, the Queen of Sheba disappears from most historical records. What happened next is a mystery, but there are clues. Did she return to a transformed kingdom? Did her encounter with Solomon lead to new laws, new religions, or new conflicts? And most importantly, did she truly bear Solomon's child? The Ethiopian claim, the birth of a dynasty. According to Ethiopian tradition, the Queen of Sheba, known as Makeda, gave birth to Menelik I, the first emperor of Ethiopia's Solomonic dynasty. The Kebra Nagast states that when Menelik grew up, he traveled to Jerusalem to meet his father. He was supposedly anointed by Solomon himself, given wisdom and power, and, in the greatest mystery of all, he allegedly took the Ark of the Covenant from Solomon's temple and brought it to Ethiopia, where it remains hidden to this day. Could this be true? Or was it a carefully crafted story to establish a divine right to rule? One of the biggest mysteries surrounding the Queen of Sheba is the location of her empire. Theories about the location of Sheba. 1. Yemen, Sabaean Kingdom. The most widely accepted theory links Sheba to the Sabaean civilization in modern-day Yemen. The Sabaeans controlled the spice trade, making them one of the wealthiest civilizations of the time. Archaeological ruins in Marib, Yemen, suggest a highly advanced society that aligns with Sheba's description. 2. Ethiopia, Aksumite Kingdom. Ethiopian tradition insists that Sheba was in Aksum, Ethiopia, and that Makeda was the first in a long line of Ethiopian queens. The presence of Semitic languages in Ethiopia supports the idea of ancient cultural ties with the Middle East. The ruins of Yeha, an ancient temple in Ethiopia, suggest early Arabian influence. 3. Nigeria and West Africa. Some researchers believe Sheba could have been part of West Africa's lost civilizations. The Nok civilization, modern-day Nigeria, predates many known African kingdoms and had an advanced culture. Could the Queen of Sheba have ruled beyond the Arabian Peninsula and the Horn of Africa? Her spiritual transformation, if it happened at all, remains a mystery. One of the most explosive claims about the Queen of Sheba is that she took the Ark of the Covenant from Jerusalem. Ethiopian legends say that Menelik I, her son with Solomon, stole the Ark and brought it to Aksum, Ethiopia, where it is supposedly still kept in the Church of Our Lady Mary of Zion. Believe this was an act of divine destiny, ensuring the Ark's protection. Others argue that the Ark was never moved and remains in Israel. What evidence exists? Ethiopian monks claim they guard the Ark to this day. The Aksum obelisks in ancient churches suggest a deep connection between Ethiopia and the Near East. Some scholars believe the story was created to solidify Ethiopia's religious authority. Whether or not the Ark is in Ethiopia, this legend has strengthened Ethiopia's claim as a spiritual descendant of Solomon. The Queen of Sheba is one of the most enduring figures in world history. But why? She represents a powerful African queen in a world that often ignores Africa's ancient rulers. She symbolizes the connection between Africa, Arabia, and the ancient Middle East. Her story is a blend of history, religion, and myth, making her a subject of endless fascination. Modern influences of the Queen of Sheba. Ethiopian royalty. Until 1974, Ethiopian emperors claimed direct descent from her, and Solomon. Popular culture, films, books, and even music have referenced her. Historical debates, scholars still argue about her true identity and the location of her empire. But one question remains: was she real, or was she a legend created for political and religious purposes? The Queen of Sheba's influence did not end with her death. Her descendants, her empire, and her stories shaped entire civilizations. But what happened after her? What traces of her rule remain today?
1. The Solomonic dynasty, the Ethiopian claim to Sheba's bloodline.
Perhaps the most enduring legacy of the Queen of Sheba is the Ethiopian Solomonic dynasty, which ruled Ethiopia for nearly 3,000 years, claiming direct descent from Menelik I, her son with King Solomon. The rule of the Solomonic kings. Menelik I was said to be crowned the first emperor of Ethiopia, establishing a royal lineage that would rule until the fall of Emperor Haile Selassie in 1974. Ethiopian rulers believed they had a divine right to rule because of their connection to Solomon and Sheba. The Kebra Nagast, the Glory of Kings, became the official Ethiopian national epic, enshrining Sheba's story into Ethiopia's royal identity. But is this historical fact or political mythology? Scholars still debate whether Menelik I ever existed. Some argue that the legend was created to legitimize Ethiopian kingship, but the legacy remains undeniable. Even today, Rastafarianism, a religious movement that reveres Haile Selassie, draws on Sheba's legacy. Bob Marley and other prominent figures have referenced her as a symbol of African pride and divine lineage. 2. The Yemenite connection. Saba and the Forgotten Kingdoms of Arabia. While Ethiopia claims Sheba's bloodline, ancient South Arabian inscriptions suggest that Sheba's power may have been centered in Yemen, where the kingdom of Saba once thrived.
The ruins of Meribah, a clue to Sheba's empire?
In Marib, Yemen, ancient Sabaean inscriptions describe a powerful queen who ruled over a prosperous land.
The ruins of the Great Dam of Marib, a massive engineering feat, show that Saba was once a technologically advanced civilization. Some scholars believe that the Queen of Sheba was a title rather than a single person, possibly referring to multiple queens who ruled Saba at different times. Could it be that Sheba's story was fragmented across multiple cultures, part of Ethiopia, part of Yemen, and possibly even beyond?
3 out of traces of Sheba in Nigeria and West Africa. The idea that Sheba's empire extended beyond Ethiopia and Yemen is still debated, but there are compelling theories linking her legacy to West Africa. Connections to ancient African kingdoms. Some researchers suggest that Sheba's wealth and trade influence may have reached the Nook civilization, modern-day Nigeria, known for its advanced terracotta sculptures dating back to... So, was Sheba a single kingdom or a vast empire stretching across multiple continents? One of the most fascinating aspects of Sheba's legend is that it was ruled by a powerful queen. In most ancient civilizations, male rulers dominated. Yet Sheba was different. Why? Theories about Sheba's female leadership. 1. A matrilineal society. Sheba may have been a rare kingdom where power was passed through the female line. 2. The priestess kingship. Some believe the Queen of Sheba was also a high priestess, combining religious and political authority. 3. The exception, not the rule. Some argue that Sheba was normally ruled by men, but the Queen of Sheba was an anomaly, a ruler who seized power in extraordinary circumstances. If Sheba was indeed a matriarchal society, this would explain why her legacy endured for thousands of years. A major debate in history is whether the Queen of Sheba abandoned her gods after meeting Solomon. The Bible suggests she praised the God of Israel but does not confirm if she converted. The Quran states that she and her people abandoned sun worship and embraced monotheism. Ethiopian traditions claim that she brought Judaism back to her kingdom, influencing Ethiopian religious practices for centuries. Was she a monotheist or a pagan? One Gua'ith she converted to Judaism. This would explain why Ethiopia later developed a strong Jewish tradition. Beta Israel. 2. If she remained a polytheist, her journey to Solomon may have been more about diplomacy than faith. 3. If she was a priestess of an ancient African religion, her story may have been rewritten by later historians to fit religious narratives. 1000 BCE. In Hausa and Yoruba traditions, stories of powerful female rulers bear similarities to Sheba's tale, leading some to believe that her kingdom may have influenced the formation of later African empires like Mali and Songhai Labini. People of Nigeria also have legends of a powerful queen who came from the east, sparking theories of ancient migrations. Could Sheba's influence have shaped early African civilizations beyond the Horn of Africa? 4. The influence on religion. Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. The Queen of Sheba is a rare historical figure who appears in all three Abrahamic religions, each telling a slightly different version of her story. Judaism and the Kibra Nagast. In Ethiopian Jewish tradition, Sheba is the mother of a sacred lineage that carried Jewish teachings into Africa. This belief explains why Ethiopia has a long history of Jewish communities, known as Beta Israel, who claim ancient roots dating back to Sheba's era. Christianity and the New Testament. In the Christian tradition, Jesus referenced the Queen of the South, linking her story to wisdom, prophecy, and divine recognition. Matthew 12:42. European medieval art often depicted Sheba as a symbol of exotic wisdom and wealth, cementing her legendary status. Islam and the Quranic version. In the Quran, Sheba is known as Bilqis, a ruler of a sun-worshipping kingdom who ultimately embraced monotheism after meeting Prophet Solomon. Her conversion symbolizes submission to God's will, making her an important figure in Islamic history. Some Muslim traditions even suggest that she married Solomon, and her descendants continued to rule in secret. Each religion reshaped her story to fit its own teachings, but all agree on one thing: she was a ruler of immense power and wisdom. 5. The modern-day search for Sheba. Archaeology versus mythology. Despite her prominence in ancient texts, no definitive archaeological evidence has been found to confirm the Queen of Sheba's existence. Recent discoveries. In 2008, British archaeologists claimed to have found a possible temple dedicated to Sheba in Ethiopia, sparking renewed interest. Sabaean inscriptions in Yemen provide evidence of a powerful queen who ruled parts of Arabia. Linguistic studies show connections between ancient Ethiopian and South Arabian languages, suggesting strong trade and cultural exchange. Why is Sheba so hard to find? 1. Her empire may have been fragmented. If Sheba was a vast trading network rather than a single kingdom, it explains why her story appears across multiple regions. 2. Political and religious bias. Ancient rulers often rewrote history to legitimize their power, making it hard to separate fact from legend. 3. Her tomb remains unknown. Unlike Cleopatra or Nefertiti, there is no confirmed burial site for Sheba, adding to the mystery. So, was she a real queen or a composite of many rulers? The search continues. Today, the Queen of Sheba represents more than just an ancient legend. She is a symbol of African excellence, female leadership, and forgotten history. In Ethiopia, she remains a national icon, celebrated as a founder of the country's royal dynasty. In the Middle East, she is a revered historical figure, embodying wisdom and diplomacy. In the African diaspora, she has become a powerful symbol of lost African history and resilience. As modern scholars continue to uncover new evidence, one thing is clear: the Queen of Sheba's story is far from over. For centuries, her name has endured, whispered in sacred texts, painted in royal courts, and debated in historical circles. She was more than just a queen. She was a legend. And perhaps the greatest mystery of all is why her story was nearly forgotten. But now, history is remembering her again. Deep in the heart of Nigeria, in the ancient town of Ijebu, whispers of a forgotten queen echo through the land. Local legends claim that buried beneath these very grounds lies the final resting place of the Queen of Sheba. But how did she, a ruler of immense power and influence, end up here? Could her empire have stretched far beyond what history tells us? And if so, why has the world ignored these clues for centuries?